Good evening.
Well, good evening, sir. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, man. I got depressed. Nothing I have tonight is gonna bring a smile to my face. I have depressing stuff. Do you have anything good to talk about?
Man, no,
No.
no, no.
Okay.
I mean, it's wild. I don't. The only good thing I could say is like it seems like the courts are saying no, you idiots can't do that.
But now they're doing the whole but the first thing I was going to talk about was Trump's quote, "He who saves his country shall not violate any laws," or something very similar to that. And that's a
Was that Trump or Musk?
so Trump said that there. He tweeted it the other day. Who knows who really tweeted it? Trump. It came from Trump's handle. That's from Napoleon originally, and Napoleon said it while he was overthrowing their democracy, like to restore his dictatorship. So like that's the quote. Trump tweeted that, and then Musk reposted it with like exactly 14 American flags, and that has some Nazi There's a whole
Yep.
thing where the 14 is a number, and he did 14 flags, which
Yeah.
it's what
Did you
what
see the Nazi symbol in the Doge
yeah.
symbol?
The thing
Okay.
is, like when Elon did the "My heart goes out to you," like everybody's like, "Oh, come on, he's autistic," and it's like, okay, any one or two of these things, and you could say like, now here's the thing: I don't really think he's a Nazi. I think he's trolling. I think this is funny for him, and he's
But
dropping.
aren't his grandparents Nazis?
His grandparents on his mother's side were Nazis. According to his father, he didn't even really spend any time with them growing up. What's funny, I'm going to jump sideways here real quick. His father gave a couple interviews recently, and basically, like a lot of people I know, including my mom, watched it and were like, you know what? I just watched his father, and it seems like Elon's a very well-meaning young man, and blah 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 blah. And then I see the other day an interview from a couple years ago where his dad was on some podcast and he was talking about how basically the whole Michelle Obama's a man theory and
Mm, okay.
Barack Obama clearly married a dude that dresses in women's clothes and blah blah blah. And it's like, oh, so Elon's dad is also a shit poster. I don't know what the right word is, like nuts, a shit poster, whatever. Um,
No.
but it makes sense to me. I'm like, oh, that's clearly where Elon comes from. Back real quick to the he who saves his country shall not violate any laws. Like there, so Napoleon said that as he was overthrowing democracy for the sake of him
Uh-huh.
being a supreme leader. What's his name? Mussolini in Italy had a quote that was eerily similar. I can't remember what it was, but same gist. And Hitler said a variation of this several times. So, like, as you're getting ready to assume control and be like the supreme leader, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
autocracy or a dictator or whatever. But that's your reasoning is you have to he's setting so many things up. Like the whole Elon's on a big push right now about how we should impeach these activist judges that don't follow the law. And it's hysterical to me because it's like, no, they're making you follow the law. Like you don't have the
Uh-huh.
unilateral authority to do the things you're trying to do. You have to follow the Constitution, and
The
that's what
thing
these.
that makes our government actually work as a democracy is that
Yeah,
our checks and balances.
the checks and balances are clearly something that I'm going to say Republican voters and Republican congressmen think that is stupid right now. Like if you bring that up to them, they're like, "Good, get rid of it." Like Trump should get to do whatever he wants, and it's like, oh man, like the part that's weird is these are the same people that go on and on about the Constitution and how great it is, and then something. This is the heart of the Constitution is our system of government and checks and balances,
Yeah.
and the reason our forefathers set it up is so that no one man can be king and do all this stuff by himself. And we're kind of getting ready to throw that out the window. Elon wants to get rid of the judges. Trump has floated a couple times, not doing what the judges order him to do. Um, it's interesting, and the scary part to me is that we're so divided information wise. Like there's an information bubble on each side. The MAGA people that I've talked to recently, like my buddies that are Trump voters, this isn't a direct quote, but a compilation of all the conversations I've had in the past week, I'd say, is basically like, hey man, like, see, it's not so bad. Like, if anything, it's getting better. Like, dude, like he got elected and we're fine. Like, we're fine. You were freaking out over nothing. And that's what I hear from them. And they mean that. Like, they genuinely mean that. And
Uh-huh.
I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, like this is worse than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to do a good part of Project 2025, but like, no, they're doing all of it. Like, even the stuff that we were like, okay, they're not going to do that. No, they're doing all of it.
Yeah.
And like I
And they're
said,
just pushing through.
mm,
Did you see and did you say they fired like everybody from the like nuclear something
They
division, and then they're like, oh wait, hold on, we gotta hire all these people
it
back.
was the people that like guard our nuclear weapons and like maintain them, and they fired all of them, and then they realized the next day probably what happened is somebody that runs that agency, they all got fired. They probably reached out to a senator or somebody like in an oversight committee and said, hey, what the f, and then they got a hold of the White House. The next day the White House rehired all of them back to their old positions. But that's part of the thing I don't like. And I'm I am totally someone you could talk into shrinking the size of the federal government. Like, I'll bet money we could stand to lose some people. Now, I think there should be a thorough review. Like, spend a couple months, take a look, figure out what jobs you could like consolidate, what jobs are expendable. I'll bet there are definitely some expendable jobs that we don't need.
Sure.
But like, let's just look at it with a critical eye for a month or so. Like, they fired everybody. It wasn't everybody, but it was like 50% of the Veterans Suicide Crisis Hotline. Which and they're understaffed. Like, we have a big veteran suicide issue in our country, and it's been that way for a while. But they're
Mhm.
understaffed. Like, veterans complain about calling and getting put on hold or nobody answering because like they don't have enough people to answer the phones. And like just I think it was yesterday, Doge fired 50% of the people that answer those phones. So now and that's a direct hit to our veterans. Like the people that I thought Republicans were all about, but that's a big deal to me. It was the National Nuclear Security Administration is what you were talking about a second ago. That's who they canned all them.
You see, Elon's firing the FF, or they're firing more FFA, uh,
FAA.
FAA, and then and Musk wants he wants SpaceX to be in control of the
So,
FAA.
and here's the thing. So far, what they have fired is like not the actual air traffic controllers. It's like the support staff for the air traffic controllers. So they haven't, and now the air traffic controllers are already shorthanded. Like we've been needing to fill those jobs for years. This isn't a Trump problem. This has been a problem over the past 10 years. But he fired all the people that work in support roles for those people. So not all. They fired, I can't remember how many, it was like 30,000 or something, but it was a large number. And we've had
Hey
nine.
Susie, give me some coffee. Oh shit, we fired
Yeah,
Susie.
dude, we've had nine aircraft crashes this month, and then that's not counting the 10th, which was today in Canada. Did you see all that?
Yeah, but wouldn't that be under Canada's?
So that was Canada, yes, but it was a flight that left America and went to Toronto. But
Apparently, it went upside. It flipped over upside down. It sounded like the winds were really bad.
the winds were terrible, but it was weird because all of a sudden on like CNN, like there was just a plane upside down with no wings, and like people were crawling out of it, and it's like, how did it get to there? Like I don't think it crashed out of the sky. Like it must have landed and bounced or something. But
I just heard it on the news, and I pictured it on my. I was like, oh, so it had to have like gone nose first, and then the back end like flipped upwards, or back, or no, the nose flipped up backwards. I don't
like
know.
they had been looking at it for a while. Like I was watching for 30 minutes, and then they were like, one of the first things they're gonna have to figure out is where the wings are. There has to be a debris field somewhere. Where are the wings? And at that point, like I thought the wings were right there. Like I thought we just couldn't see them, but they're right next to the plane. But apparently not. Apparently the wings were somewhere entirely different. Nobody died on that flight. There was a couple people in
Awesome.
critical
That's awesome.
condition. A couple people got rushed to the hospital, but like nobody died somehow, and the wings are nowhere near the plane. That's interesting. When they get this figured out, I want to see like a reenactment, like a CGI of like what happened to this flight. So
You
anyhow,
know how they always like don't leave your seat kicked back when
yeah.
you're for until after takeoff or whatever. And then they always like the stewardess always go and sit back down and then we start taking off and I'm like,
Do
good
you,
night. And
this is my random fact of the day, but do you know why they want your seat backs up and not back in the event, like taking off and landing?
I was thinking about this. Is it because the person behind me might hit their head against the
Nope.
back of my seat?
It's so that if they have to, if in a case like today where you have to get off the plane in a hurry, plane's on fire, we need to get off. It's easier for everybody to get up and out of their row if all the seat backs are up. So it only has to do with evacuating the plane. You're not safer in the event of a crash. It's not like, oh, you're going to die because your seat was leaned back. It should have been up. Like, no, it's when everybody needs to get off the plane in a hurry. If people have their seat reclined, that creates an unneeded obstacle in the way of the aisle. So I learned that recently, and it's an interesting fact. So there you go.
I got it.
You learned something.
So why do we have to put in our phones in airplane mode? That's another thing I've
You
never
know,
really.
I've heard that really that doesn't do like I've heard from people that doesn't affect the plane at all, but I don't know that, and I like to not speak about things I don't know about. I assume it might mess up the frequencies or the ability for them to communicate or their instruments. That's what I always assumed. I've heard that's bullshit, but that's so for every conspiracy theory, my answer is like, who stands to benefit from this? And on
Mm,
that one, that's an easy one. Like, okay, why would the airlines all lie to us and tell us we can't use our phone on the flight? They're not gaining. Like, it's not like they're trying to sell us a replacement to our phone. If they were
no.
making us use their thing instead and we had to pay for it, that would make sense. But there's no benefit to us not using our flight on a plane, which makes me think there has to be a real reason. So
Okay.
until
Yeah.
somebody explains to me who's benefiting from any
Like
conspiracy,
just so like the flight attendants don't have to deal with us. Like
I think they
not.
would be happier. The flight attendant, if we were all buried in our phone for the 4 hour flight, they would be flight attendants would be much better off. It would
Yeah,
make their
maybe.
lives easier. So that's sorry, that's a weird sidetrack we had there. But anyhow, back to back to good old Trump. I'm going to repeat it one more time. Who saves his country does not violate any law. Like that's that should be alarming. Like at any other point with any other president, a comment like that would be everybody would be talking about it, left and right. This would be a problem. Um,
He's
nobody's
normalized crazy. He's
nobody's
normalized
doing it,
crazy.
and so you pair that with what's going on with New York's Mayor Eric Adams. Are you up to speed at all on this whole deal?
Uh, ish.
Okay,
I know he's getting, yeah, but
I'm gonna give you a backstory and tell you where we're at now. He got brought up on charges under the Biden DOJ. They went after a Democratic mayor, and it turned out he's guilty as shit. Like according to, he got caught taking bribes, soliciting bribes. So he went out and actively tried to get bribed, and then accepted the bribes. That's public corruption. In my mind, that's exactly what the DOJ should be working on when it comes to public officials, like people who are using the office to benefit themselves personally. Like that, that's good. Get him out of there. Um, he got indicted by a grand jury. Apparently, they were on the verge of bringing what's called a superseding indictment, which means we're adding more charges to this. And it's because they caught him after he got indicted. They caught him trying to destroy documents and encouraging other people to destroy documents that were under subpoena. So they have evidence of him doing that also. So they were going to tack that on. Um, anyhow, he goes. So he has been very anti-immigrant. I guess I don't know what the right word is. He's all for deporting immigrants. There's too many immigrants in New York City. Immigrant crime is out of control. I'm parroting him. I
okay.
don't know if it is or not, but that's his thing. And he kind of won the mayoral race. He's a former cop, but he's a Democrat. And he's like, I'm a Democrat, but like we are letting way too many people into this country, and a lot of them are ending up in New York, and this is causing a problem. Okay, makes sense to me. I don't know if it is or not, but that I buy that. I'd listen. Um, so he is under he was going to get the book thrown at him when Biden was still in charge. As soon as Trump gets in charge, he hops on a plane, goes down to Mar-a-Lago. Apparently, in this meeting, there's members of the Department of Justice there. This one lady, what was her name? Sassoon, Danielle Sassoon. Danielle Sassoon is an interesting character in this. Okay, she was like an assistant prosecutor in the New York Southern District of New York. Trump, when he gets in, immediately fires the head prosecutor because that's somebody who Biden appointed. Not weird. A lot of times they fire the local attorneys. But then Trump names this girl to be the acting while he's waiting to get somebody new. She used to be a Supreme Court clerk for Antonin Scalia, who is one of the most conservative Supreme Court justices ever. She was a clerk for him, and she's a member of the Federalist Society. The Federalist
Mm,
Society, they're not, I don't know how to explain them. They're not far right, but they believe in the Constitution, like, and they're a big force in the Republican Party. So she's an active Federalist Society member, former Scalia clerk. Now, Trump just put her in charge of the SDNY 3 weeks ago. She's in this meeting, and apparently, what is being discussed is a straight up quid pro quo. Eric Adams is saying, "Hey, if you guys drop all these charges against me, I can help with your immigration raids and blah blah blah." And Emile Beauvais, who's the number two now at Justice Department, he used to be Trump's lawyer. He was Trump's defense lawyer for a couple of these cases, like while Trump's been getting prosecuted, and now he's the number two at DOJ. He yells at us like a younger member of the staff for taking notes during the thing and collects her notes at the end, wads him up and throws him away because they've been discussing a very corrupt quid pro quo. You drop the charges for me, I'll help you
uh,
out. That's hysterical right there. Anytime you're having a meeting in any kind of government thing and somebody says, "Hey, don't be writing this down," and goes over and collects your notes and wads them up, that's a sign of guilt right there. We know that what we're
right.
doing is not right. That's why we don't want notes. So that's your first red flag. Um, After that meeting, Beauvais, who's number two at DOJ, tells Sassoon, the Fed Society acting head of the SDNY, tells her, "Hey, go ahead and drop all those charges against Adams." she knows this is wrong. This is not constitutionally correct. So she writes a letter to Pam Bondi, who is the brand new AG, and lays it all and makes the letter public too. Writes it to her and lets it be known to everyone and says, "Hey, we've got this guy dead to rights. Like he's totally guilty, and in fact, we're about to charge him with more things for destroying. That's how we know all this." And she says, "I can't, in good faith, drop these charges and go on pretending I care about the Constitution." I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what she said.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
she said, if you want me to drop these charges, I'm going to resign. And whatever Pam Bondi and Bove said back to her, she ends up resigning. So that, well, I'm not going to do it. Sorry. After that, there's after that, Bove says, "I will take care of this. We're going to pull the case back from New York. We're going to bring it down to the Washington D.C. field office, and we'll take care of it here." So he pulls the case back. The two guys that are the head of the public corruptions unit, he goes to them and says, "Hey, I need you guys to drop this case." They look at it and they say, "Nope, we'll resign if you make us." And then, okay, fine. So they resign. This goes on for a while. In total, now 8 people have resigned. The
Wow.
last guy that resigned, also a Republican. Um, he wrote a nice little letter that's pretty awesome. His last name is Scotton or Scoten. And the end of his letter that he wrote says, "If no lawyer within earshot of the president is willing to give him that advice, then I expect you'll eventually find someone who is enough of a fool or enough of a coward to file your motion. But it was never going to be me." And that's how he ended his. This is like, I try not to
Okay.
get hyperbolic, but like, if this was any other president, there would be hearings about this in Congress really, really quick, and it would probably lead to some kind of an impeachment. Like, this is a big deal. This is public corruption at its finest. To clear all this up, like the day after all this broke, Eric Adams and Homan, the head of ICE, the guy that's doing all the raids, went on Fox and Friends together to let everybody know there's no deal here, blah blah blah. And at the end of the interview, Homan was like, "And if he doesn't hold up to his end of the bargain, I'm going to be in his office and up his butt." And it's like, hold on. He said, "Hold on. If he doesn't hold up to his end of the deal," is what he said. And it's like, hold on.
Hmm.
You guys have a deal that. So it seems very out in the open because everybody that was in that meeting says it was flat out a quid pro quo. It very much appears to be one, but Eric Adams says, "Hey, you guys drop the charge against me, and I will be pro Trump, and I will help you with the raids, and you got a deal." And
Oh my gosh.
that's I hate to be like, I don't want to be the hyperbolic guy, but like, that's a problem, is all I'm going to say. I want to call it a lot of things, but it's a problem. Like,
Sure.
so you combine that, and then that all happened Thursday, Friday, and I think into Saturday next week. And then on Sunday is when Trump said, "He who saves his country shall not violate any law." So he's basically saying, "No, I'm going to do this. It's yeah, it's wrong, it's corrupt, but you can't stop me." That's what we're dealing with here. And Nixon was the first to really explore it. It's called the unilateral executive theory, and it's just that basically the
Hmm.
president is a king. There is no checks and balances. The president can do what he wants, and
Well, our Supreme Court judge ruled in favor of that.
well, and their thing, what the Supreme Court said was, no, the right move is he should get impeached. If he does something wrong, impeach him. Don't charge him criminally for what he does in office. Impeach him. He's not going to get
Both.
impeached. Yeah, but anyhow, so that, like, of all the things, and they're doing a great job right now of flooding the zone. There's so many things every day that you can't focus in on
Yeah.
one. That thing with the Southern District of New York is very, very, very wrong, and it's kind of like, I've seen a couple of Republicans that are decent people that have come out on the news, and say, "Hey, this is not right. That we should look into this." They're not gonna. They're saying kind of what they need to say right now to, "No, no, we're taking this seriously." There's never. We'll all forget in the next
Because
week.
to yeah,
In the
tomorrow
next,
there'll be
yeah,
three more things, and yeah.
exactly, and like that. So anyhow, it's a fun one. And then so all that happened over the weekend. I think Thursday, Friday, Saturday is kind of when that played out. And then this morning, 4 of Mayor Eric Adams' deputy mayors resigned. And there is, I don't know if this is going to happen or what, but the governor of New York, her name's Kathy Hochul. She does have the power to just remove Adams from office. Not every state can do that, but in the New York Constitution, she could do that. So she could hold some hearings. I don't know how this would set up or how it would work out realistically, but she could set up some kind of a hearing thing and call in these prosecutors that all resigned and make them say under oath what happened there. And basically, since the U.S. government isn't going to do a damn thing about this, like New York could do it and do it in a very public way and still
Hmm.
get the information on the record or out. I don't know that it'll make a difference, but they could at least get it out. So
Well, I mean, where's the line drawn in the sand where the even the Democrats are just kind of like, well, he's got power, he can do whatever he wants. Like even they're not like doing any checks and balances. Like,
No,
but when do the Republicans actually start like going, no, Trump, this is a little too far? Or is there even a place? Is there even a spot?
I'm going to answer that question in a minute because Jesse Waters answered that question for us earlier today.
Mm.
Um,
Oh, good.
but
Oh,
what
good. I love it when Jesse Waters answers my
I'm gonna
questions.
I'm gonna tease this, okay? Jesse Waters is 100% correct. It's the most correct he's ever been about anything. And I wrote down his full quote because I want to quote him on it, okay?
Okay.
But we'll get to that in a minute. The thing with the Democrats right now that's bothering me because like Hakeem Jeffries went on some show and they asked him directly about Eric Adams, and he just said, "Well, Eric Adams is going to have to prove to the voters that that he's not being controlled by Trump," and just kind of he kind of admonished Eric Adams, but he, in my mind, it should have been a full throated like he needs to resign. Like this is a terrible look, and he didn't do it. And I think Republicans are trying to, they're not Republicans, Democrats throughout this election, throughout Hillary's election, they always play it too safe. They're afraid of getting out too far and making themselves look stupid. So they sit back and try to be smart about what they say. And that's not the information warfare system we're in right now. Like they need to be out there and loud. If a Republican did some shit like this, other Republicans would be calling them out left and right. Democrats are afraid to
Okay.
do it. Um, it's very alarming. And I don't know who the next Democrat to rise up is going to be, but it's not going to be Hakeem Jeffries. And Hakeem Jeffries is good at being I think he's the right person to be the Speaker of the House because the Speaker of the House or the minority leader, like their main job is to fundraise. Like that's what they do. And like he is good at that. And he's very cozied up to like the corporations and the corporate donors. And that's what he does. That's fine. You need to win a national election, it takes money, so you need donors. I hate how that works, but as long as the Republicans have millionaires on their side or billionaires, the Democrats need some too. I'd be
A
nice if
trillionaire?
it'd be nice if we could get all that money out of politics, but we're not close to that happening. So
Yeah.
you got to have money to fight money. Anyhow, let's talk about Jesse Waters real quick. Waters, he said, and I'm going to skip this is I'm paraphrasing because I'm going to skip some stuff, but he said he was bragging about how Republicans are handling this right now, and he said we are waging a 21st century information warfare campaign against the left. They're using tactics from the 90s. We have top down command and control. Someone says something on social media, Elon retweets it, then Rogan podcasts about it, then Fox broadcasts it. Within a day, millions of people have seen it. They have a information, I don't know what the right word is, a feedback cycle.
They have control of media.
No matter
It's
if you're someone
under
that doesn't pay
control.
attention to the news, you're going to hear it on Rogan. If you're someone that doesn't really do anything but get on social media, you're going to see it from Musk. If you are someone who watches the news, Fox News is like, and if you hear something, there's a whole thing where if you hear an untruth more than like over and over, like it becomes familiar to you, and then you stop questioning it. And like, there's a lot of stuff that Trump started saying in 2016 that everybody was like, that's not right. And then after like 4 or 5 years of it, half the population is like, well, yeah, no, I've heard that. Yeah, that's true. And it's like, no, he just kept saying it. It's not true. But
They're eating the dogs. Like, I mean, people are still
yeah,
believing that they're eating dogs and cats in these certain
prime
cities.
example. And he just keeps saying it. If you keep saying it, it'll bust through. And God, Jesse Waters, I'm going to repeat it real quick, but somebody tweets it, Elon reposts it, Rogan talks about it, Fox talks about it. Before you know it, you've seen it. If you're certain people, you saw it on Twitter, on podcast, and on the news. Like I saw it in 3 places. It must be true. So I say all that. Your question earlier was how long till the Republicans turn? Like as long as they can keep the information warfare, so as long as the Republicans are winning that battle, like it could get really bad out there. But if all you're seeing on TV is telling you that it's good, I don't. I think they could keep that up for a while. Like
I mean,
right
they've
now.
been all throughout Biden's thing. They said it was horrible. It was horrible.
Mhm.
Everything was horrible, and everybody believed it. All the right
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, the economy is tanking and everything's so bad out there right
Yep.
now. They're eating the dogs, and now they've gone and flipped it, and everything is great. But
They're
eggs
still
are
in.
more
Yeah.
expensive, gas is more expensive, everything's worse. But
So
now everything's
here's the thing.
okay.
In the month of January, everything ticked in the wrong direction just a bit. Like not alarming, but like
Yeah.
inflation kind of spiked back up. Gas prices went up a tad. Egg prices went up a lot. That's
Oh,
avian
yeah.
flu. Um, But like things went a little bit in the wrong direction. So you can say like, hey, and here's the thing: you can say Biden was president for 20 out of 30 days of that month. Now, a lot of the things that happened in response to Trump's tariff threats. But let's not even argue that. Okay, I'm not even going to go down that road. But like you could say, oh, it was only 1 month, and Trump was only president for 10 days. Okay, cool. But you can't say like everything's better now. Like what metric are you saying everything's better? Like the stock market's kind of flat. It's not doing anything good or
It's
bad.
actually gone down over the last week, like
It's going to
almost
fluctuate up
every
and
day.
down as long as he's screwing with the tariff stuff. The stock market's going to react to that.
Yeah.
But it's really, and I here's the thing is the Democrats are trying to do this thing where they're like, we have too much. Oh God, we have too high of morals. Like we won't stoop to that level. And it's like, no, you're going to lose unless you build some kind of an information bubble that's as strong as the rights. And like I don't see
Yeah.
them doing that. I think that the right's going to do this for 4 years and the left is going to try to like go on CNN and MSNBC and have little 5 minute conversations. And nobody's going to see it and the people that do see it aren't going to believe it. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's worrying. Yeah.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
It's very worrying. And
I
it's yeah, like how do we control this narrative? Because their narrative, like I feel like the left, there's not a lot of like lying, manipulating, like there's the numbers are on our side for the most part.
if everybody showed up to vote.
And not even just voting, but just like the stock market. Who does better in the stock
Oh
market? Are
yeah.
Republicans or Democrats? Like there's just numbers, all these different numbers and metrics and
Yeah.
stuff. Like
Jobs
the
created.
Democrats are just way better, but the right has this whole fantasy land where
Yeah.
they're the superior party and like they're gonna make your life better and your family's life better and your children's lives better.
Well, that's
And global warming's not real and
that's a great
dinosaurs aren't real.
a great example is the whole the economy's better under Republicans thing because like up until like a year ago I would have said well generally Republicans are better for the economy and then you look back over the last 40 years and this got brought up a lot during the campaign but it's like you're looking at it it's like hold on this can't be right and then it's like okay no the stock market does better unemployment's lower there's more jobs created like over the last 40 years, Democrats have done better for the economy than Republicans. And the only argument you can make to kind of fight that is to say, well, the economy is cyclical and like it goes in ups and downs. And that's how it's worked out that every time there's a crash, there's a Republican. You can try to make that argument. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying that's the only argument for it.
You could try and make that argument, but if you look at policies that the Democrats put in place that actually like create more jobs
Yeah.
and are better for the economy overall, and what the Republicans do is pretty much nothing. Like they don't do anything.
They do
They
tax
just kind
cuts.
of
So here's the thing.
for the
Here,
rich.
here's I feel like this statement is extremely true and verifiable. But if you're a if you make more than $400,000 a year, 400,000 up to a trillion, then a Republican's economy is better for you. If you make under 400,000, then a Democrat as president has a better economy for you. So it's a matter of who we're talking about here. Because if you're a billionaire, a Republican comes in and immediately cuts taxes. You're saving money every year. That Republican was better for you than any Democrat would be. If you're me, then my taxes tend to go up slightly during Republican administrations and down slightly during Democrat, but never a huge jump.
Yeah.
So
What percentage of the population makes over $400,000 a year?
I'll bet it's a lot lower than we think. You
I
should
bet
Google
it's
that. What percentage makes over 10 or over 400,000 a year? I'm going to say it's like 7%. I think that might be high.
I think you're right, yeah. 400,000?
Yep.
1.8%.
1.8%. So, man, so 98.2% of Americans make under 400,000. So, that's the group. That 98% fares better when the Democrats in office, but that 1.2 really control or 1.8% really controls the narrative of what we talk about and what we say in our country.
Yeah.
So, it's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very scary.
Yeah.
Huh. And I
So,
think that's the thing is like, I don't know, like CNN's kind of Caitlin Collins seems to be the only one on CNN that's really fighting back.
she's doing well.
Uh,
Like even if CNN's numbers tank, like she's gonna go on to another. She's doing well. I'll just say.
yeah, I'd follow her. If she had a podcast, I'd listen to it.
Yeah, she's doing good.
Maybe she does.
So to circle back around on Elon, um, I watched and it was Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, was on Fox. I think it was today. And he was doing this whole speech saying Elon is heroic. What Elon Musk is doing is heroic. He's shining a bright light on corruption. It's total transparency, and I'm getting sick of hearing this, man. What everything Elon's saying on a daily basis, like I have yet to see any receipts for. First of all, before I even go down this road, because I found this to be astonishing. They did a poll, okay, and I want to test you on this. USAID, all the money that we're given to all the foreign countries, okay?
Uh-huh.
What percentage of our budget do you think is USAID?
Um, Less than 1%.
You're right. Okay, you're one of the few people that's right. They surveyed and like 80% of people thought that it was like 15%, 20%, like that's how much money.
Isn't
No,
the Pentagon like half of our budget?
it's a third.
A
Okay.
third? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But 1% of our budget is USAID. And everybody is acting like all these cuts that Elon's finding that he's announcing, 50 million for this. And you know what? And first of all, most of what he's announced on that has turned out to be incorrect. Like where he'll say, oh, look, we're giving 50 million for condoms for Gaza, for example. That one is
Right,
easily
right. Yeah.
debunked. Which that one I was watching, I think it was John Oliver. John Oliver is hysterical to me. But he was talking about like the game of telephone that had because it started with 50 million for Gaza, and then it went to 100 million. Trump at one point upped it to $100 million worth of condoms for Hamas specifically, and then somebody said it was $15 million for oh God, who was it? But it just kept evolving, and it was like it was nowhere near. It was for the Gazan province, and it was about AIDS reduction. Anyhow,
Yeah. Back
um,
to the lying.
yeah, but
You
they
just
even
keep saying stuff, and then they're just. Oh man, I saw this thing where it was some lady in Africa. It was a news reporter in Africa, and the lady was like walking up to the building where she gets treated for AIDS.
oh I saw
For
that. Yeah.
yeah, and she's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And then I saw numbers, and apparently, just within the last week, like there's an estimate of 300 children, just babies,
Died of
just
AIDS.
they no, they have HIV now, which is like a 90% death rate within the first year.
Apparently
So
that I saw that.
they're
So
killing
apparently that
babies.
that 50 million in aid for the Gazan province of Africa what had something to do with that, where it was
Yep,
transmission during pregnancy or right after pregnancy, and we put a lot of money into stopping that because it's saving babies' lives, which
totally.
doesn't seem to matter to some. But yeah, no. So it's like that money, like a lot of this money was going to do really good, and then on top of that. Like, it's a double-edged sword, okay? And everybody always says, "Oh, like the USAID was really a kind of a front for the CIA." Yeah, it kind of was. Like we used our goodwill to also gain favor in that country to keep our
Mhm.
influence in the region and to keep China out. So yes, we there's a guy that keeps going on Joe Rogan named I think it's Mike Benz, and he's like uncovering the nasty truth about the CIA, and it's like a lot of what he's saying is true, but he's leaving out all the truly good stuff that they do, and it's like we do really good stuff for that country, but because we're trying to be cool with them and have them like us and have our influence there and not Russia or China. Like that's how we
Mhm.
play the game. I talked about this last time, but that's called soft power. And we learned at
Yeah.
one point that like the whole you can catch more bees with honey than you can with whatever that whole saying is. But it's like no, like we could try to force these countries to not attack us, but that only makes them hate us more. Or we could be their friend, and then that truly does work, and we've got friends all around the country. We're a safer country as opposed to
Yeah.
just
Well,
using the big
there's
hammer.
and there's a lot more to it than that because there's all these little countries like that don't have any money. They're poor. They don't have
Mm,
food. There's people are starving to death. They've got, rebels coming through town, like killing people, raping people, doing all the, just it's a wild west in some of
yeah.
these countries around the world. And
Africa's where this is happening, and it's been happening for the past 10 years, and where it's kind of not covered.
forever,
Like
forever.
but it's ramped up because it was really it was the British colonialism, and Britain
Yeah.
and France had a big foothold in Africa, and they kind of their empires kind of retreated, and now it's Russia and China are really going in heavy in Africa, and we were kind of late to the game. We realized what's happening where Russia and China are gaining all these strong footholds in the Congo, for example, and it's all these countries that have these rare earth minerals. I'm totally stealing this from the guy Ryan on Breaking Points, but he said this today, I think. But it's like every time we talk about a country, we talk about these rare earth minerals. How rare are they really? Because it seems like everybody's got them. Greenland's got them, Canada's got them, Ukraine's got them, Africa's got them. I'm starting to think they're not as rare as we're being told they are. Sorry, I had to steal that from
Yeah.
Ryan. But so now, like we are trying to not lose Africa to China and Russia, and we're losing that battle, and we were already losing it, but now with Trump pulling all the USAID out, like we've given Africa, and that's just this is what people don't understand is this is all a long game. Okay, you want to be the last country on Earth. It's like I'm going to use oil, petroleum. Okay, you want to be the last country on Earth that has petroleum because we're going to run out one day, and it might not be in our lifetimes, but we're going to run out. And the reason we talk about the U.S. Strategic stockpile, but also we have a lot of oil under us right now. But it makes sense to buy it from the other country because it costs about the same as if we did it here. But we're using all of their oil, and at some point in time, they're going to run out of oil, and the only person that's left with oil is going to be us, who has untapped oil fields under America still. Like that's kind of our long-term strategic goal.
So
Okay,
that we can invade these other countries and rule the world. I
that's a
mean,
hundred. That's 100% the long cane, and it's mainly a Republican thing, but I think Democrats do it too.
this
But
is
it's
so
like no,
stupid.
let's use up everybody else's resources so that at the end we're the only one that still has it, and then we'll dominate because we have oil and nobody else does. You could say the same
But
thing for
what are we
lithium
dominating?
mines.
Like starving countries?
Oh yeah, we're
It's
that's the
good.
game.
Like
Yeah,
when oil goes away, we basically go like we drop back down to like the
I would like to.
1800s
I have
in
a lot of
population and everything.
I have a lot of faith that
Medicine.
by the time we run out of oil, they will have scientifically figured enough stuff out to where we'll just move right on. We'll have other things. We're not there yet. That all the
Yeah.
stuff where people try to say that we should totally switch to electric vehicles by 2030. No, we're not there. We need more than 5 years. But at
Yeah.
some point, we'll hit a point where oil is not as big a deal to us, and
Yeah.
maybe we'll just find
Nuclear might be a big one. That's what I'm thinking.
I think we're going to find an alternative fuel that like we can create. Like I don't know anything about this, but I find that more. I think they're going to figure out how to make gasoline, and it's going to be cheap to make.
We're gonna live on our farts.
That could totally be it. So anyhow, this is a great way to transition to Ukraine. Rare earth minerals. First of all, we're going to get to rare earth minerals in a second, but I talked about this last time or the time before, but like it drives me crazy watching the Trump administration because there's a whole thing you have to do where if your defense secretary or your secretary of state is going to go to or your vice president, let's just say, is going to go to the Munich Security Council and give a big speech. Any new things, any new policies he's going to announce in that speech, you kind of have to tell everybody else that might be talking so that we're all on the same page and America looks like they are in agreement with what we're doing. And like
Yeah.
the Trump White House doesn't even try, and it irritates the shit out of me. But Pete Hegseth, he gave a speech first where
Soft.
Hegseth said that Ukraine is definitely not going to be in NATO. That's off the table. Like they're not coming in. Which I told you, I agree with that. I think that right now trying to put them in NATO is a mistake, and Russia's never going to stand for it. But also, don't take it off the table before we start negotiating. That's one of your chips. Like you don't. We cleared the table of a lot of our chips before even sitting down with Russia, which is stupid. But Hegseth said that, and then Mike Waltz, who's the national security advisor, him and a couple other people came out almost immediately afterward and tried to clean up what he said. They're like, no, no, no. We're not taking anything off the table. And like they kind of cleaned it up. And as soon as they cleaned it up, Trump went on TV and was like, no, I agree with Pete. They're not getting into NATO. And it's like, get your stories together, people. Then I'm trying to think here. Then JD went to the Munich Security Conference, and his speech there was alarming to all of Europe. But he kind of went in a whole new direction where he said, no, he said there's a scenario where we could have American boots on the ground in Ukraine, like we could do, and it's like, well, hold on, that's we went in two different directions, and JD somehow found a third direction to take us in. Where it's like, what are we doing, man? So I have no clue, and maybe I heard somebody say that maybe this is Trump's like super smart strategy to confuse the Kremlin, to confuse Putin. He doesn't know what we're doing. But it's like, no, I would rather we have a coherent message that if we're sending 4 different people out across the world to talk in front of cameras, all 4 of them kind of are on the same page as to what could happen. We look discombobulated is the best word I can use. We look like we didn't sit down ahead of time and talk about what we want to do. It's just everybody's individual thing. Lindsey Graham is like off in I think he was with Zelensky. I don't know if they were in Ukraine or where they were at, but he is apparently the one pushing Trump saying, "Hey, Ukraine, the eastern side of Ukraine is a gold mine, a literal gold mine of rare earth minerals. Okay, there's all
Lindsey,
kinds, and that's why Russia wants it, and there's some truth to that. That's why Russia wants certain other areas because
yeah,
it's
well,
so.
so
So
Lindsey Graham wants to like take over Ukraine now.
he's telling Trump.
These mother, this is this is so
Let me
bad.
get through this. Hold your anger till the end. So
Okay.
Lindsey Graham has apparently been telling Trump for months, even before the election actually happened. Like he said, he played golf with Trump and it was explaining it to him. But he was like, "Hey, Ukraine has all these untapped rare earth minerals. Make them sign something saying that, hey, we'll keep giving you money, but you have to repay us in the rights to your rare earth minerals." Okay, so
Yeah.
so Trump initially floated, and we didn't know that this was an actual on paper offer, but he apparently had floated like, yeah, 500 million or 500 billion worth of your rare earth minerals. And Zelensky was like, "Hey, you've only given us 177 billion. Like maybe we could talk about 177 billion worth or whatever you give us, we'll give you that back in rare earth. That way
Yeah.
you're not losing money." But like, where did 500 billion come from? That's 2.5 times what you've given me. And we all got to laugh about that. But it turns out Zelensky came out and went public with it. It turns out no, our Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent, when he got to, I think it was Munich, wherever Zelensky was, he presented him with like a contract and was like, "Here, sign this." And it was them signing away, and it was weirded. It was worded weird. It was like they get 50% of the rights or 50% of the proceeds for this and that, but it basically comes out to $500 billion is what it comes out to. But in this contract, it didn't say anything about security guarantees. Like, hey, if you give us this, we're going to help you keep fighting Russia. Or it didn't have any of that. It was just here,
Oh,
sign over the rights to this.
and
And
Zelensky
Zelensky,
signed it?
no, Zelensky did not
Oh,
sign it. And he ended up going public with it and saying, "Yeah, this is what they presented me. And they just wanted me to give them the rights without any security guarantees." And he even said, "If there were security guarantees, I'd be willing to play ball. Like, we're like, guarantee that, having a, basically, we need to negotiate with Russia, get Russia out of here, do something to show that, like, hey, if Russia ever attacks again, the U.S. has got our back, or whatever it is, some kind of a guarantee that you got our back in the future, and then we'll sign it over." And that's where that story ends. We don't
here,
know what.
sign this random
Which that was our
120 page packet.
that was our
Initial
Treasury
here,
Secretary
here.
that took him. He took that to him, and he's supposed to be one of the adults in the room. Like when he got nominated, but he's like, "All right, his name's Besant. I think it's Scott Besant or Tom
Hmm.
Besant. I don't know." But
Isn't he
everybody's
out now?
what's that?
Is he out now or is he still in?
Out what?
I thought he was like, okay, never mind. I heard
Yeah.
something like Bissett was out, like he's not with them anymore. But
Oh no, I think if he's out, it's news to me. I don't think he's out.
okay.
But anyhow, but it's kind of hysterical where it's like that's the guy that we all thought, don't worry, Besant is there. He's not going to do anything stupid, and he's the guy that goes and makes this offer to Zelensky, and like it it's embarrassing. Um, I don't know. I don't blame Zelensky for going public, but I think Zelensky's fighting a losing battle. I think that Trump is fixing to cut him out of whatever deal happens. It's what it really sounds like at this point is we're going to carve up Ukraine with Putin. We're going to say, "Okay, Putin, you get this half. We're gonna we're gonna watch over this other half. We're gonna help them, but then we're gonna try to get all the mineral rights to that area. So like, if you're Ukraine, your future sucks right now. Like this is a bad deal." Um, yeah.
So yeah, like, well, I think we ended last time on, are we the bad guys? Yeah, we're the bad guys. We
We're
are the
not,
bad guys.
yeah. And again, the reason I'm just going to say this again, but the reason this bothers me is in 1994, Ukraine had had multiple nuclear weapons when the Soviet Union fell apart, and us and Russia and everybody else, we didn't know who was going to be leading Ukraine, what kind of government they were going to have. Everybody in the world agreed that they shouldn't have a nuke. They don't really have a government yet. They just became independent. They shouldn't have nukes. So we signed a treaty with them. Us, Russia, I think a couple European countries, and Ukraine all signed a deal, and they gave all their nukes back to Russia. And in exchange, America and a couple of European countries were going to defend them forever so that Russia would. They wanted to hold their nukes because they were like, hey, we need these in case Russia ever tries to reclaim us. And we said, no,
Uh-huh.
no, no, give your nukes back. We got your back. We'll make sure that never happens. So we're violating a treaty right now that we would have their back against. But that we violated the USMCA, Trump's beautiful trade deal. Like we're basically violating treaties left and right, and like that very much bothers me. And I said this last time, but Europe came out and said like, hey, like we can't count on America to hold up to its treaties, so we have to start looking at China. And the biggest winner in everything happening to this point is still China. Like they're doing a great job of staying off the radar right now. They're not commenting. They just everywhere that we're pulling back from, they're making plans to slide right in. And they're just like, hey, if we don't say anything, if we don't start, we basically don't start celebrating early. Don't start celebrating until you cross the goal line. It's basically what they're
Yeah.
doing. And they're like, let's just swallow up as much as we can while we can. And then when it's over, we'll have a little celebration. But right now, don't do anything to draw attention to ourselves.
Yeah, it's almost like the United States has a hole in their back pocket and there's just money like falling out and China's behind us just like
Yeah.
snatching it up. Like, okay.
Except it's land that's falling out. It's countries and in
Yeah.
spheres of influence.
Yeah.
So,
Which
yeah.
it all equates to money, right?
And
Our money.
also Taiwan, let's just talk about Taiwan for a second because we've supposedly had Taiwan's back and China
Do we have
really
a treaty
wants.
with them too?
Yeah, so we do have a defense treaty with them and China really wants Taiwan to be a part of China again. And this has been going on for a while.
Yeah.
And if you're China now and you're looking at the way we're backing out of Ukraine or helping them, and then on top of that, I don't know if you saw, but the reason we want Taiwan is because they sell us all of our chips. Almost all the chips in the world are made in Taiwan. For whatever reason, microchips are made in Taiwan. And they sell them to us and not China. I think they sell them to China too, but they sell them to us for a pretty good deal. And in return, we protect them. That's the deal we have with Taiwan. And
Yeah.
Trump now is talking about putting tariffs on Taiwan's chips. And it's like, what? Like, that's an easy way to get them to just say, okay, screw you, America. Let's just deal with China now. Like, that,
Yeah.
this makes no sense whatsoever. Like, that, of all the things he's done, that one's one where I'm like, did nobody talk to him about this in advance? Like,
That
somebody,
doesn't seem like he doesn't like have a lot of information. There's a lot of information he's missing when
no,
he's
and
making big decisions, missing like giant chunks of information, and
the problem.
it's mind-boggling.
The problem is he's watching Twitter and Joe Rogan and Fox News. So he's one of the people that's like, I've heard that 3 times today. That must be true. And that's
Everything's great. The
yeah.
world is great.
What the one thing we have returned to, because during the first Trump term, like senators, congressmen, people that like wanted to get Trump's attention and talk to him, and for whatever reason, I guess they can't. I guess they can't call the office and talk to him. So they start going on TV and like they're giving an interview, but you can tell like they're really trying to get Trump's attention. They know Trump's watching the Sunday morning shows, so they're trying to talk to Trump through the media, and that's
Uh,
already kind of caught back up. Dan Crenshaw was on one of the shows this weekend, and he was like,
okay.
no, like there's no way that Putin's going to get the better of Trump. Trump would not let his legacy be that he let Putin get the better of him. And like I was watching it and I was like, oh, this is some reverse psychology shit right here. Like
Okay.
he's reminding Trump that people are saying you're going to get played by Putin, but you wouldn't let that happen, sir, because you're too great, you know. And in my
Uh-huh.
mind, that whole interview was him talking to Trump because he's probably looking at what's going on, going, oh shit, like he's possibly going to get swindled by Putin here. I can't let that
Totally.
happen. And his best way of getting that information to Trump was to go on Face the Nation or whatever show that was. And what's sad is I think that like I guarantee you Trump watched that interview and was like, yeah, like I'm not going to let Putin swindle me. And then hopefully wheel started ticking in his head and he was like, oh
Yeah.
shit, is Putin
Yeah.
yeah, that's where we're at, man. So anyhow,
4 more years.
the one thing I'll say I've seen, and you never know what you can trust what you see on social media. Like I don't like, and some of the YouTube programs I watch are like, oh, we've seen all these tweets about blah blah blah. I'm like, I don't know if it's real. Like it could be Russia.
Yeah.
I don't have any clue what it is, but it seems like there are a lot of Trump voting groups out there: construction workers, farmers, anybody dealing in produce right now. Who is the other group? There's one other big group. God, I can't remember who it was now, but they're all kind of saying like, "Hey, Trump, like you just cut blah blah blah, and that's hurting us. What the heck?" Like,
Yeah.
so if that's true, which I'm gonna couch that with, like, I don't know, I could be seeing people in Russia
I've
tweeting
seen
at
a
shit.
lot of that. Yeah, a lot of that with
Yeah,
especially farmers and
who we both have to realize that we can't take anything at face value. So is that real? I don't know. Like it sounds like it could be real, but I'm not ready to pounce on it at all. Like it's,
yeah.
but it seems
And
like,
there's
and
there's some like I actually was watching something where it was a guy and he was like I'm gonna lose my farm and he was talking through it and then you can kind of tell he like realizes like oh it's because Trump did
Yeah.
this like
When even
under
like,
Biden I had these subsidies and they
yep.
were gonna help me pay for this equipment and now that Trump's in office it's getting everything's being cut and they're not gonna give me my money now.
Well, and a lot of the USAID stuff that they cut was like the government, the money, our government sends it to the farmers here to buy their crops, and then we send those crops overseas. And that's what
Mm,
a lot of people don't get how that works, but a lot of the money that we spend overseas, or even like here's a great one is Ukraine. Like $177 billion is what we've spent on Ukraine so far, right?
mm-hmm.
What percentage of that money do you think was like actually cash that we sent to Ukraine?
Zero.
It was like 3% was like, and it was
Okay.
cash for certain things. I can't remember what they were. But like 97% of it was like, we have old weapons here in America that are kind of
Hmm.
outdated that we want to replace. So we send those old weapons to Ukraine and then we pay American, and it's totally the military industrial complex, but
Yeah.
we pay them to make us new bombs, new tanks, new whatever it is, new planes, you name it. And
Yep.
that's how we use this as a convenient way to make sure that we have the most modern and up to date shit and like get rid of our old shit in a way that hey, it's going to help the Ukrainians, but also we needed to update our shit anyway. And
Yeah.
that's the same way with USAID. Is a lot of the money we spend on foreign countries, like even let's just say 50 million in condoms to Gaza was true. Okay, it's
Those
not,
were
but let's just say it was.
handmade in America condoms.
Those were made. We bought those from so some American company created job or kept their jobs going to make
Uh,
$50 million worth of condoms, and then the
yep.
condoms went overseas, not the cash. So that all this money that he's cutting right now is helping American companies stay afloat
Hmm.
or keep people. So all that money being cut is going to lead to companies now downsizing and layoffs. The first thing, and it's a matter of how long is it going to take till we start seeing the signs, but like. I'll say that I was wondering the other day. I was like, I wonder how long it's going to take till I can kind of do like a ha ha I told you so type thing. Like, where look at the economy. But like the thing is, I think it's going to get so bad so quick that like I won't even want to say ha ha I told you so. It'll just be like
No.
shit. Like we're
No,
screwed.
it's gonna be a complete another collapse within like a week.
It
It's you know like whenever the economy starts collapsing, like
it goes quick.
they stop selling, they stop trading in the middle of the day,
Yep.
and they'll just
But
be like, okay, we're taking a cool off period, and they may not start it back up for another day or
I think
two.
there's a rule where they have to start it within a certain amount of time, but I don't know what that amount of time is. But
Yeah, I don't either.
anyhow, but it really like when the produce prices start to hike, which again, if you believe what you're seeing on social media, which I don't know that I do, but like, oh, like all these migrant workers stopped showing up, so now nobody's there to pick the produce, and
They're already
I
going
don't,
up. Produce
I
is
don't
already
know,
going
but the thing is, I don't know how I know that's happening a little bit, but I don't know how widespread that is. That might be a tiny thing that's happened on a fraction of farms, and it's not going to affect anything, or it might be a big thing. We don't know. But as soon as grocery prices start ticking up, if inflation went from like 2.9 to 3 this last time, so it shot back up to 3. If
up.
inflation comes out this next month and it's 3.5 or 4, like the stock market will immediately react. Oh shit, inflation's on the rise. You can't just immediately curve inflation. It's one of those where you have to get it to stop rising and then slowly bring it down if you can. Uh,
Does Trump know how to do that?
the thing is, people around Trump do. I swear, people around Trump do, but
I don't think they
they
do. Who?
here here's what worries me is Musk has already said a couple times like there's gonna be a hard period. Like it might get bad before it gets worse. Like they've already kind of set that up. So
Might
they've
get bad before it gets worse.
that's what Elon has said that a couple times. Like so I think that they're conditioning their voters to be like, okay, no, they told us it might get bad for a couple months, but it's a matter of how long can they stretch that out for. Like it's gonna be interesting.
I don't think they care. I think they have the power. I don't think they care about the citizens. I think they just completely take control of power. Who cares about what the economy's doing as long as they have all their money and their power and their friends and
Yeah. Well,
that's my biggest fear.
it's going to be interesting. So, what we have to look forward to, and there's going to be so much between now and then, but they got to address the budget next month. Like they have to. Um, this is another. Both sides are hypocritical. I'm not trying to pick on the. I am picking on the Republicans, but both sides are hypocritical. But their whole thing that they've been bitching about for the last 4 years has been like, hey, instead of passing this big, it's called an omnibus spending bill, okay, where it's just
Hmm.
pack it all together and yes or no, you're voting for it all or you're not. and they keep saying we should be having separate like line item votes on like the funding for this and the funding for that. And that's give us power back, and we're going to start doing it that way. Well, we're a month out, and they haven't even started that process yet. So we're going to have another omnibus. The whole thing that they said they were going to do, they're not even trying to do. And that's going to be the first true test because already, like what Trump has said he wants to see, there's not a path for. Like they're not going to have enough votes in the House or the Senate to get it done. And then there's in the House, they've got two different ideas, and they're going to have to go with one. One of them is basically everything all in one, and the other idea is break it into two bills that you try to get through. And neither of those seem to have a path right now, just based on getting all the votes. And the Republican House caucus is a hard one to kind of you can't put them all into one box. Like there's certain groups that really want certain things that other groups don't want, so they're going to have a problem. And the only way that they passed a budget the past 2 years with Mike Johnson in charge is because Democrats always bailed them out. There was always more Democrats that voted for it to pass than Republicans. Democrats have said they're not bailing them out this time. They have enough members to pass it on their own, so they should just do it. We're not voting. I think that they're trying to set up leverage to where they'll end up saying at some point like, okay, we'll give you enough votes to get it passed, but you have to put these certain things back into it that we want. So that's what they're trying to set up for right now. I don't know if it'll work or not, but that's going to get weird because at some point, Mike Johnson's going to have to turn to the Democrats and say, okay, what do you guys want to help me get this across the finish
He
line?
doesn't
And
like
then,
working with them.
what's that?
He doesn't like working with them.
He doesn't, but he's had to do it like 6 continuing resolutions in a row. He had to turn to them and help get their help to get it across. So if he does that, it's either going to be what I'm predicting is it's either going to be Mike Johnson's going to shut down the government for I don't know forever. I don't know how long, or he's going to have to turn to the Democrats to get enough votes to get it across. And
Well,
when he
isn't that
does
what
that,
they want? Is to just shut down the government?
I think that would be politically horrible for them. If you have a split Congress, like the Democrats have the Senate, but Republicans have the House, you can kind of play chicken with that and let the government shut down and hope that the other side gets blamed. But in this case, they have the Senate, the House, and the presidency, so there is no possible blame to go on the Democrats. But what'll happen is eventually, I'm betting this Johnson's going to have to make a deal at some point to get some votes from the Democrats, and he's going to put some things in, and then a Matt Gaetz type character. My fire. Hold on.
Fire went out, bro.
Yeah. Well, you can just look at my Netflix screen for a while. You can see what my most commonly watched things are. Tom Segura. Um, anyhow, but yeah, I think, and it's after he makes a deal with the Democrats, Matt Gaetz type character is going to petition to basically have him removed as Speaker of the House, and then we're going to have some drama where they're trying to find a new Speaker of the House, and you know how hard that was for them last time. They went through like 5 or 6
Oh yeah.
before they settled on Mike Johnson. So that's where I think we have a potential for things to start falling apart is next month when it comes to the budget. So I don't know for sure.
But Trump's just pushing everything through. And like if he starts ignoring the judges, then the House and the Senate don't even matter.
Yeah,
He just
it'd be
steamrolls everything.
it'd be
Doesn't
interesting if they just didn't pass a budget and he was like, "I'm just doing my own budget," and like,
yeah.
who stops him? Like, I don't know who stops him at that point. So
The people, I guess, at some point we're gonna have to rise up in the streets, Andy.
or so yeah, it's anyhow. Again, I'm going to take this all the way back to the couple of people that have walked up to me and been like, "Hey, man, see, it's not bad. We're still here. Everything's good." And I'm just like, it is good if you're in your information bubble. If you're seeing what I'm seeing, things are very alarming right now. So,
Yeah. Yeah. If you're actually paying attention to what's actually happening and not just what Fox News is spewing to you,
yep,
things are scary.
it's a little nuts. My chair is doing that. I don't know if your office chair does this, but every now and then, probably because I'm a heavy dude, mine will start to just slowly sink on
Oh,
me.
mine does that too. Yeah.
And it's been doing that for like the last minute. I've been trying to act comfy, but I'm like, I'm shrinking over here. Anyhow, so that's all I've got for tonight. Do you have anything you've been seeing that you want to chat about?
I think we covered everything. I mean,
I want to say
just,
this. I've been doing an experiment with you where right before we record, I go on Kyle Kalinski's podcast, Secular Talk on YouTube,
mhm.
and I just look to see what his last 5 or 6 videos are, and then
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'll bet Docs is going to bring one of these things up. I just know it. It's not working so far. Like I thought for sure you were going to want to talk to me tonight about how Elon really stole the election and they hijacked it and all that because Kyle did a whole thing on that.
Oh,
And
did I?
I was ready to fight back on that one for you. So I'm gonna start looking at David Pakman and see maybe it's Pakman that's influencing
I
these
kind of
guys.
listened to a little bit of everybody, but that seems. What is he saying about Elon stealing the election? That seems.
So
I mean,
I don't buy any of that, but it's
yeah.
basically like the numbers just don't add up. And here's it like there were some things where like the Republicans built an army of poll watchers and like taught them how to challenge ballots, how to challenge write-in ballots, and like they did a really good. They got a lot of ballots disqualified that maybe shouldn't have been disqualified, but
Hmm.
like that's not against the law. They took advantage of the rules and they said, "Hey, we need to get in there. We need to disqualify as many ballots as possible, and here's how we do it." And they ran basically training camps on this shit for like the last 2 years, and then they got in and did it. And like you can look and they say like, "Oh, in Pennsylvania." 2.8 million, mail-in ballots got disqualified, and it's like, okay, if that happened and it happened because Republicans were challenging so many of them, and the Democrats need to fight back by having
Is
enough
it
trained
because
people.
like the bubble's not filled in all the way or something?
Probably
Like
that, or a signature slightly doesn't match, or whatever, something like that.
a slightly doesn't match
But
signature.
that's where the Democrats need to have their own army to be in there and like fight back on
Mm,
those and like try to cure that ballot and find
yeah.
that person, track down that person and get them to come down and this and that.
Well,
And I don't.
everybody's ballot should count, right? I mean, everybody like this is a thing is like this is a democracy. We vote. And if my ballot doesn't count, I should definitely have a chance to go and like be like, yeah, this is my ballot, this is my signature.
The thing
Like,
is, you have to answer your phone when they call you about that or text or whatever. And like I get so many spam calls a day, and like some of them say like city of blah blah blah, and then I'll
right.
answer it. I'm like, oh, that's the city. Like let me answer, and then I answer it. It's somebody trying to sell me fucking AARP insurance or something. So like I don't answer so many calls a day. And that's a problem we have. Where like if you did a mail-in ballot and you left a phone number as the way they can contact you, and they're trying to contact you to get you to cure your ballot, and you're not answering because that's a weird number, like that, I could see that
Yeah.
happening a lot. So if you're going to do a mail-in ballot, you need to like, and that again, I think this is Republicans need to get with the times. Like this is now what Republicans are going to try to do. They're going to try to challenge as many ballots. If you want to win, you're going to have to put together an army of people to be in there opposing these, or maybe challenging
Mhm.
certain Republican ballots, whatever it is. And the thing is, that takes money. And that's I go all the way back to Hakeem Jeffries. Like he's not great at a lot of things, but like he raises money. And when it comes to elections, you need money, even for a ground game, for people going door to door canvassing neighborhoods. Like you need money for that. I know everybody's hating on Hakeem Jeffries right now. Kevin McCarthy, the guy that was the Speaker of the House before Mike Johnson, like they should have never gotten rid of him because he raised more. He was the Nancy Pelosi of the right. Like Nancy, all the way back to Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi, that was her strength. She raised so much money for the Dems. That was what she was good at. And that's why she got to keep being the speaker for as long as she did. 'Cause she was breaking in
Totally.
money. And then
Yeah.
she kind of groomed Hakeem Jeffries and gave him all of her billionaire contacts. And now he's that guy. So,
Mm.
yeah, you got to have money.
Mm.
Or you could just have Elon on your side, one or the other.
That yeah, I think that's all you really need is one. I mean, yeah. Could you imagine if like Bill Gates was doing the same thing Elon did
No, and
with
people say
Biden? The right
Fox
would be going crazy.
Fox News has been saying a lot, like, "Oh, it's weird that the left doesn't have a problem with George Soros, but like suddenly they don't like Elon for doing this." And it's like, yeah, Soros never had a role in government. Like he donates a lot of money, which like the more proper analogy that Soros would be like Soros is like the Koch brothers or the Murdochs. Like he
Yeah.
has some influence. He's putting a lot of money into things. They're not actually in the government. Elon has people that are accessing the treasury and like have our bank account information and social security number. Like that's scarier. Which Elon posted tonight. He's like, if I really wanted to do something with that, like imagine how many people's info I had with PayPal. Like I had all their info and I didn't do anything with it. It's like that's not a good thing to say, man. Like
No.
this is worrying. So yeah,
Anyway,
like I said,
like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
find us
We'll
on
keep
Blue
talking.
Sky.
We'll keep
I
talking. Oh yeah.
I want Blue Sky to be successful, but I got to tell you, like, I keep forgetting about Blue Sky for like weeks
Oh.
at a time. Like, I just realized earlier today, it's like, oh, I haven't even been on there in like a week. I'm on Twitter 3, 4 times a day. I haven't been
Yeah.
on Blue Sky in a while, so I gotta try harder to make that happen.
Put
So
the app right next to your Twitter app so you
yeah, I'm gonna do it. But Blue Sky, Confident Idiocracy Podcast, is that something like that?
yeah, something
And
like
I'm
that.
I'm Confident Idiot Andy on Blue Sky. Follow me, like and subscribe on YouTube, and oh god, it's not gonna get better, Docs. Like I think I'm starting like last thing I'm gonna say, the whole like, haha, I told you so. Like, I don't think we're ever gonna say that and be happy about it ever. I think we're gonna say that. We're gonna say that to each other, like, oh shit, we tried to tell them, like, look how bad it is. We tried, and yeah,
Yeah. When do we start the revolution?
I I worry that the revolution is not gonna happen. So there's been enough polls where people seem to be like, oh, okay with a dictator. Like you poll
Yeah.
Republicans, are
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, like no, I think what this country needs is a dictator. It's like, oh
Yeah.
God, like so. Yeah, I don't know that the masses are ever going to rise up, and it's going to be partially because people are okay with it, and then the other part of it will be because people are too lazy. They don't care. They're like, yeah, whatever. We got a dictator. It doesn't affect me. Like that's kind of the vibe I get from a lot of people. It's like, yeah, it doesn't affect me. Like
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, but it does.
it'll take a while for them to feel that. So anyhow. That's all I got for you, buddy.
Well, have a good night, Andy.
All right. Love you, buddy. Bye.
Love you too. Later.